Welcome to Life Picks Relationships, helping you understand and enliven your marriage through the various perspectives and experiences of others who found a way to prioritize what's really important in life. From new love to those that have weathered the storms, let's get ready to take your relationships to the next level with your host, ST.
Hey, Life Pixers. Hope you're having an awesome day. Are you ready to better understand yourself, your partner, and your marriage? This is going to be such a fun episode because it's about one of my favorite topics. Because I think those of you that don't like travel anymore are just like stopping to listen to this podcast because there's so many episodes on travel, because I think it is so important. I know it's COVID and I know it's really hard to go and travel now, but I want to like get this in you, in your brain, in your DNA, in your just like being. So when it comes, you really go and travel. Maybe you're saving up now to travel so you could go and travel. But with this couple, you are going to absolutely love it. We are going to travel with them. Well, not really travel with them, but we're going to hear their crazy adventures of travel. They have a really strong desire to just travel. They have a strong desire to live and to love fully. I am super excited to be here speaking with Nik and Lindsey. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, you're going to want to find out more about them at wanderlustmoonduo.com or check out Nik's podcast, Fully Human, on all major platforms. Thank you so much, Nik and Lindsey, for being here. I am so excited to be speaking with you. You want to start by telling us how you guys met?
Ooh, Nik, I'll let you start that.
All right. So we met in 2019. Lindsey and I have both been in the music industry for quite a while. Lindsey a little longer than I have been.
Because I'm older.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, but
Okay.
I'll let you, since you said it, it's fine.
Is it like, do you consider it a secret?
No, definitely not. I just didn't want to say like, it's because she's really old, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I had just flown in to start the tour, and famously, Lindsey likes to say it as part of her part of the story, but I was standing out front of the hotel and she thought I was in the opening band for the tour that we were about to go on together. I was actually on the merchandise crew. So on the tour that we were on, she was working in the dressing room department, which I'll let her explain what that means. I was doing merchandise and I was working. I'd set up a merchandise stand backstage, so band and their friends and their family could all come up to my stand and get merchandise for free. I just had to keep track of it. So we ended up being right across the hallway from each other. This is when she figured out I was not in the opening band because I was standing behind road cases behind stage. So then we were in Canada and we just ended up talking. And then we went to a pond and we were listening to bullfrogs yell and bark and all the good noises they make. And I just vomited out my whole story of my life of how I was like 8 months sober and that I had almost I was at the beginning stages of liver failure before I'd started this tour like 8 months previous, which is when my sobriety started. And then after that, we literally just became adventure buddies. She was actually in a relationship at the time when we met. So it truly was just us as friends. We would just like go explore, and we had a good amount of days off on this tour, which was such a blessing. So we would just go literally adventure and walk around and check out the cities. And yeah, we just became really good friends. And then I'll turn it over to Lindsey to fill in any blanks and then figure out how we moved from friendship to where we are today.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well.
Yes. First was the dressing room. Let's explain that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, it was lovely. I worked with the most charming people, but it was just literally where the bands would set up. So my job was to set up the food that the band members wanted in their dressing rooms every day. And then I set up a quick change dressing room on the back of the stage. So the lead singer, when he would want to change his outfit, he would run back into a little room and change his stuff. And I had to set it up the same way every day. I brought stage coolers so the band and crew could drink waters or sodas or other beverages while they were working on stage. And so Nik was set up in our area. And so we would just talk all day or, wave to each other as I was running by and delivering stuff to the dressing rooms. And yeah, adventure buddies. That is what we did. We would get up. I would say, I just want a coffee and we can go from there. And he usually picked he loves using the website Atlas Obscura. So he would pick one weird, wacky, awesome place for us to go. And we would find our way there. Maybe the first thing, otherwise it would be like, okay, we're a distance away. So let's wind our way there. And we would just stop and be gone for hours. I mean, I think our record was New York City. We were out for 17 hours.
Yeah.
And then finally it was just because we were walking home at 3 a.m. and a man ran out of the bushes and started screaming. And I was like, I would like to take an Uber back to the hotel now. And that ended our day there.
Yeah.
But so you never took Ubers before that? It was just
no, we
walking?
did. But yeah, we just love walking because then you see so much. And we would always, try to wind our way by a cemetery and then wind our way by usually an Indian meal for dinner and wind our way around a city and just explore. That's how we like to travel. So we were very fortunate on that tour that we had a lot of days off. So it allowed us a lot of time to hang out. And then my relationship met its demise. And then Nik and I were like, well,
was that because of Nik or is that too personal for me to ask?
No, it's not too personal. It just wasn't. It wasn't going to go anywhere. And I was, I try to be optimistic and I was like, it could, but there were so many red flags and I just kind of ignored it, but then didn't. And then it came to a head and it was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. This just isn't who I am, to be with this person. So then Nik and I, continued just hanging out. And then he, I think one night just said, I like you. And I think I said, don't, not yet. So, but then we just started hanging out and it's been nonstop. It was actually funny. He had a trip planned after the tour and he ended up canceling and came to see me at a festival, came back and we went on a month-long trip to Europe. And then we worked on some cruises together. And then we went to the West Coast and then flew home early for, when COVID hit. And then we were together solid. It was well over 500 days. We looked and we're like, we have been together in the same space for because then we bought a van and traveled the country for 3.5 months last summer. And so we hit over 500 days together. And then I went to go see my grandfather in Wisconsin without him. So that broke our streak this past April.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is adventurous and so much fun. I want to go through the whole process of what happened. Starting from walking, when you just walk, what do? You want to take us through one of your walks with you?
You go, Nik.
Like Lindsey was saying, my favorite website, especially when I'm traveling, is Atlas Obscura. And if you haven't gone to it, you should absolutely check it out. It's just so much fun. No matter where you are in the world, it shows you just the weird shit that's around you, like monuments or weird stores, every kind of crazy thing you can imagine.
What was the one in New York City we went to? The smallest?
Oh yeah, there's a place called the Hess Triangle, and it's literally this big, and it's the smallest publicly owned piece of Manhattan, and it's outside of a pharmacy, and it's privately owned in Manhattan. It's the smallest piece of privately owned real estate in Manhattan, and
it's like a piece of land on the floor.
Yeah, tiny. You barely put our feet in it.
Thousands of people walk over it a day and have no idea what it is, but it's privately owned. So I would just literally go. I would go online and figure out what was around us, and like Lindsey said, she would like to get coffees, and I would like to get a tea. So I would find something to go look at, and then there would generally be a tea or a coffee shop right around from where we were at. And yeah, we would just walk there, and a lot of times just get lost on the way too, of just kind of going where the wind took us and wandering around. I mean, New York City, we went to, what was that that place we went to? What was it called, Lindsey?
What kind of place?
It looked like a beehive, and we started there. The Vessel. We started there, and then we walked the High Line. We walked that from start to finish, and then we went to get coffee with some friends midday, and then we went to dinner, and then we
found another coffee shop on the way. I was about to ask you if you only drink coffee or you also we do eat. We both eat. Well, on that trip, we we're walking to go get food. I think we were going to get dumplings. And I was like, what is down there? And we entered into the most magical coffee shop, Adhoc Collective. It was beautiful. We just sat there with the owner for a really long time. And I walked out with a bag of lavender to put in my coffee. And then we went and got dumplings, but we eat plant-based. So it's always really fun. And it's always a pretty safe bet to go to Indian food. So we like to go to Indian food everywhere. And a lot of times we just sit down and say to the waiter, like, dealer's choice. We won't be mad, just nothing with paneer or dairy. We're going to eat it. And we're going to love it. And so we don't know what we're going to get to eat, but it's always something delicious.
Everything's an adventure with you guys.
Yeah.
So it literally just, it starts off with a small destination of like, okay, we want to get this. And then, we just figure out from there kind of what the adventure brings. I mean, we were sitting down looking at the Statue of Liberty and I was like, have you ever been on the Staten Island Ferry? And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, it's free to take the Staten Island Ferry, which, fun fact, if you ever go to New York City and you want to see the Statue of Liberty and not actually go to the island it's on, just ride the Staten Island Ferry. You're about a football field away from it. And then you go to Staten Island, literally walk right back around and you can jump right back on and come back across. It takes a little over an hour to go round trip. So we did that at like,
I'll add into
midnight.
that coming from New Jersey.
Yes.
If you want to go into New York and you don't want to drive into New York traffic, drive to Staten Island and take the ferry from there.
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, so smart. And it's such a lovely ride. And I was like, this is as close as I need to get to the Statue of Liberty. And it's free. So we went at like 12:30 in the morning and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So it literally, it just starts off with like, let's go check this out. And then we'll see what happens. And then we just kind of roam around. And a funny one that I'll add into it, before we actually started dating, towards the end of the nights, I would say, hey, let's go to a bar, which to her was quite funny because I was sober. But she just thought, well, maybe because he used to drink so much, he likes to be around bars. And literally, the only reason I wanted to go to bars was so that we didn't go back to the hotel, because I knew once she went back to the hotel, she would go to her room and our night would be over. So I would just go sit at bars just to spend extra time with Lindsey. And she
I love that
drink
so
all
much.
the ginger beer we could find and just sit at bars.
Yeah. And she didn't realize until we actually started dating and we could go to the same room that
then there was no more bars.
Yeah, there was no.
Yeah.
She's like,
we had a dinner one night and I was like, you want to go to a bar? And he's like, no. And I was like, wait, we've been going to bars for a couple, like 10 weeks now. And he's like, no, that was just, and I was like, oh, nice. Well played.
Shows you how much he liked you.
Yes, it did.
Now, what did it do for your relationship, right? You're doing this like spontaneous thing, not knowing where you're going, being very open, being very free and flexible. How did that help with your conversations and how you related to each other?
Oh, I think it helped so much. We both have the same or very similar mindsets on what travel is, and it is spontaneous. Both of us, like we have a trip, we're going to Iceland in June for a month. And I know Nik has looked up on Atlas Obscura and other places, a million little dots he has on his Google Maps, but otherwise we haven't looked up. I know one vegan restaurant we're going to go to, and we're both getting tattoos. And that's as far as we've gotten about like going anywhere, but we're renting a van. So we'll just find, parking spaces and camping spaces. But with that, I think that sense of adventure, or, it leads to conversation when we walk through a cemetery and we're talking about the headstones we're seeing or the delicious food we're eating. All of the things we're adventuring really instigates conversation and deeper knowing of someone. Because if I would have walked in like the dumpling spot in New York, he was so passionate about it. And we went, and if I would have walked in and gone, meh, they're okay. But instead we said one bite, and then we flagged the waitress down and said, I'm sorry, we need another plate of these. We need the other style. And we sat there for like an hour and we both eat really slowly. And Nik will wait and have one tiny little bite left that he will wait for like an hour to eat because he's savoring it and just wants like the last bite to never be over. And we were both fine with sitting at a table for hours, just talking about food and talking about travel. So I think because we were like-minded, that really, or what we believe in, how we like to travel, really helped the conversation. And the things we would come across also help fuel a conversation and getting to know each other.
Okay, so two things. First of all, how do you eat so slowly, Nik? You want to teach me the secret?
I mean, it's kind of goes into my drinking habits because I didn't by the end of my drinking, when I got pretty sick because of it, I wasn't eating at all. So when I started eating again, it kind of was just a new love in my life again. So I was just literally cherishing it because I hadn't eaten so long that it was like I was just enjoying it so much. So truly it just came from that, where I was like, oh my God, I haven't eaten anything good in forever. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, like when it gets taken away from you, then you appreciate it so much more.
Definitely.
Now, also, I find really interesting is most people think of spontaneous and like adventure. They usually associate it more with like action, moving, quick, like let's go. And you guys seem to be the opposite. You're really spontaneous and adventurous, but take it slow, take the time. How do you manage that?
I think it's, for me at least, kind of the same answer as my slow eating is. I was living at such a crazy pace of my life that in my journey with sobriety, I learned to love every inch. A favorite song of mine says, "Snails see the benefit, the beauty in every inch." And so I kind of just adopted that slow roll, slow life. Like when you almost lose your life, you kind of gain a massive perspective of, okay, I need to slow it down, and I need to appreciate what I almost lost. So for me, it's massive sense of that of, okay, I almost didn't have this, so now I do, and I'm just going to enjoy every little step of the journey.
Yeah, and I think that there's nothing fast about me. I'm usually late. I don't walk slowly, but I like strolling. And I think I learned that from my parents. We still walk almost every morning with my parents, and it's just strolling of like, ooh, look at the flowers. Ooh, look at that. So it's really the journey. I didn't want to pick a destination, or I don't like looking at a lot of tour books, or I don't want to have expectations when I travel a lot, because if we don't get there, I don't want to be let down. Because like Nik and I learned in our van last summer, it was like he found us an amazing place to sleep on the coast in Washington, and I didn't want to stay one night. So we stayed 2. And then we decided to stay 3 nights. And it was like, we allowed for that because we didn't plan anything. So we could stay 3 nights. So that's what we're thinking for Iceland. It's like, what if we come across an amazing waterfall, something? We'll just stay there a couple nights. We're just allowing ourselves that space. So, and I think with that, as I'm getting older and having been in music, everything is at such a fast pace. And I really enjoy the slow. I'm reading a book called Breath right now, and it's fascinating about just how breathing and being slow is so good for our health.
It's interesting. It's really interesting to see that, because like you usually don't, these people like just want to stay at home and don't want to get out of their bed and just enjoy their routine. And there's like nothing routine about you. And it's just interesting. Like there's all these combinations. I like it so much. Now, do you travel usually? Like, do you ever like not do road trips, like not van type of things, and just travel and stay in hotel style?
Yeah, we did a month in Europe winter of like 19 into 20, right? And we had backpacks, but we stayed at Airbnbs along the way, and we took ferries and buses, and we did rent a car when we were in Norway. So yeah, we do. We will. In Iceland, we're going to stay in Airbnbs in Reykjavik on the front end and the back end, and then do the van in the middle. But yeah, I Airbnb my house, or I did when I was gone on tour. So I really tend to appreciate that culture of coming into someone's space, because I loved welcoming people into my space. So, and not the website from the early 2000s, MySpace, but my actual space. Yeah, I think I like being in a culture. So hotels aren't my first choice.
Yeah, I love Airbnbs for the fact that you could like pick all these different types of really cool, different styles, different vibes, different things, each one. And then like you see their pictures on the website, and it's one thing, and you actually go and experience it, and it's totally different and just so much fun. And sometimes it's just like not as good, and sometimes they're way better, but it's all part of the.
And I like connecting with the hosts and being like, where should I go while I'm here? Or, or they're like, my sister works at this restaurant. Yeah. So I do really enjoy that. So I think we both feel that way and tend to Airbnb first. I don't know if we've ever stayed at a hotel together outside of work.
Yeah, work for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to your hotel rooms instead of the bars. So you do stay in hotels at some point. Now how, like, do you find yourselves every time coming back from a trip and saying like, oh, now our relationship is better from that trip? Or just because you always travel, you don't have like, oh, I was in Europe for a month, so now our relationship is better after that trip?
Well, I can think of two things that came to mind really quickly. Like we've had some challenges, like in Norway. I don't know how, but somehow we didn't have a flight or something happened. Go ahead.
I made a Google Doc sheet and I made it so our parents and friends could look at it and see what time our travel was. And I very much overcomplicated it and I made it in Nashville time. And so I looked on our Google sheet and I saw Nashville time for our flight. And so we got there, we turned in our key for a rental car, and then it was 6 hours,
6 or 8
behind
hours.
time, something like that.
So 6 hours later, so yeah, like 8 hours just of doing
Yeah,
nothing.
the guy was like, you don't have a flight right now. And I definitely went back to the place where you drop your key back in and tried to reach my hand back down in, but I couldn't reach it. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's cameras. Like they're going to catch me trying to steal a car. And I was like, we'll just stay at the airport for 6 or 8 hours. But then we had to rebook everything because we were on a connecting flight. And then we had an Airbnb and then we had a ferry the next day. So we had to book all this stuff. And we sat there and just were like, okay, you look up, you book the flights, you try to change it and see if we can get our money back. And then I'll be on here saying, okay, we may have stayed at a hotel that time, at airport hotel. I was like, let's try to get a new one. And then we'll take so that was really neat because we learned how to do the unpredictable, learned how to pivot and replan and what we had. And it was nice too, because we planned the first 2 weeks of our trip, like where we were going. But once we got to the airport, we actually didn't know where we were going. We were just going to go, I don't even know if it was like Copenhagen or something. They're like, we'll plan from there. So then we're like, okay, well, now we have 8 hours in the airport. What should we do? Let's actually take a ferry here. And then we're like, let's look at Google Maps. Oh, we could take a ferry over to Estonia. Let's go to Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland. Cool. And so then it came about then, but we had to be flexible and not getting irritated with each other.
Yeah.
I like how there was no like blaming there. I mean, I don't know what went on that you didn't say, but from what it sounded like, it really didn't sound like, oh, it was your fault. You made this. Now drop the key. No, none of that. More of just like, okay, this happened. How can we go and actually solve it?
Yeah. And I didn't want to be mad at him because it was so sweet. He was making a Google sheet for our parents. So they knew when we were flying, so they could be like, oh, okay, they haven't responded to us because they're on their flight. It says on the Google sheet. So you can't be mad when someone's trying to tell your parents where you are so they don't worry, So it was just like, well, okay, we're going to really experience this little part of the airport because they wouldn't let us go through to the little restaurant area. So we were just out front, but we're like, well, we have backgammon and some snacks. So we're good.
Yeah. And I mean, the airport that we were at was in Kirkenes, Norway, which is in the Arctic Circle. So we were in far northern Norway, one of the northernmost airports in Norway. So it was a one terminal, if you can even call it a terminal. It was just like a one hall airport. So we literally, it wasn't like we were at JFK and we could just like, oh, I'm going to go to the food court. There was literally just
none of that.
Tables and chairs. And when your flight came, when it was time for your flight, then you went through security and then you left. And also there was one guy, to just talk about how small the airport was and how nice the people were. Someone took their bag through and they ended up wanting to check it because the flight was a lot more full. And so one of the kids that worked at the airport took it back and checked it for him and then put it on the plane for him. So the kid literally was like customer service at the front, then went to the line and was like, oh, you don't want to fly with that? Okay, cool. And then he walked back to his desk, put the tag on it, then took it to the plane. I mean, we're all within like 30 feet from each other.
Yeah. I remember when I was in Norway in Tromsø, also up there in the circle, there was a flight, like we were flying back to Oslo. We were going to stay in Oslo for a few days afterwards. And there was a snowstorm and all the flights were canceled. And because it's like such a small airport and it sounds a tiny bit bigger than yours, but also really small. Legit, all the flights were closed and then everyone had to come and like, there were no hotels. Like everyone wanted to stay tourist place. Everyone's staying in hotels there. And so like we called the like the airline to see like what hotels they were like putting people up in hotels. They said that we could go to a hotel and just stay by them if we find a room. And then afterwards they'll refund us. If not, then come to the airport and then they'll go and help us. And we literally went to like 5 or 6 hotels, and
goodness.
Every single one of them were all booked. Like airlines just like took them because they knew that they needed their clients who are like their customers were going to come. Right. So we had to like go back to the airport, get a hotel, which was like a really bad one. So we just like checked in our stuff. And then we went to hang out in a different bar and a different lobby for the rest of the night until our flight the next morning. But literally it's like tiny. Then the next morning, all the flights are there at the same time. I think like until you go to a small airport, you don't really know what a small airport is.
Yeah,
definitely.
Especially in a different country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it's like, what do we do? Where do we go? What is this? It's
right?
it's such a beautiful way to learn about yourself though.
Yeah.
And the people you're traveling with.
I think that is the best way to learn. Like, do they get stressed? Is it like hard? Like what's going to happen? How are they going to go and deal with it? Like, I remember I was once who did like this, not really road trip because we just like took it in a car and it was just a couple of days. It wasn't like a new van or something. And we slept in hotels. But I was driving and I passed the key over to someone and it dropped into like a drain, like the gutter, like by the,
oh no.
But yeah. So for like the person that I was with, like legit, that happened like at 9:30 at night. We got our keys back at 4:30, I think in the morning, like till they had to like cut us new keys and things like that. And the person that was this is like, okay, like now I know you're a good friend, you know, like the way you just like totally chilled about it, totally fine. Got to learn new things. And so I really, really do think that, travel is time to go and learn more about yourself, like you said, and learn more about your partner. And then you just like have these memories. You remember like you were in Norway and like you have the story of this guy that went and took the suitcases back and forth. And it just like brings up really good feelings, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, I know you said that there wasn't any blame, but instantly I knew it was my fault when we were there and I looked up at the board and there were yeah, exactly. So I was like, we got that out of the way.
Feeling responsible versus like blaming or right.
Yeah, because that was his portion of the trip to book because it was a surprise to me. I didn't know where we're going.
Are you serious?
Everything. Yeah.
Okay, I'm liking this adventure part more and more.
Yep. I had no idea where we were headed. And it said,
so now you know on the board. And I was Iceland, like, you know where you're going?
I know where we're going because we're going for, I don't know. I just said, I don't want to be here for my 40th birthday. And then Nik said, Iceland's open to vaccinated travelers. I was working on my TEFL certification, teaching English as a foreign language. And I was like, stop doing my project. And I was like deep diving in flights. And it was actually my other thought with your previous question. Another time that came to mind was with our sweet van. He broke down several times last year. And I also realized that I have worry, like when I'm driving and I'm thinking the van's going to break down, I'm filled with worry. And Nik doesn't have worry a lot about things he can't control because he almost lost his life. And it comes, I think, if I'm speaking for you, it comes from that. He's like, I just can't worry about stuff. And I'm sitting there like, please don't break down. Please don't break down. But all the breakdowns led me to get a second Delta credit card that we put a big expense on, a new transmission, which led us to getting miles for free flights to Iceland. So
cool. That is cool. Okay.
So it all comes around a little bit, but we did learn a lot about ourselves traveling. I mean, there were times when it was like, we'd pull into a campsite and Nik would walk away and I would walk another way and we would breathe. Cause it was like, we were also living in a tiny space with a van that kept breaking down or, you know, just navigating around fires in Oregon or whatever it was. And then all the breakdowns, I think there were 5. But it was beautiful how we would just stop and be like, okay, well, we're on the side of the road again. And in Montana, it was 19 or 21 hours. We were on the side of the road until a police officer came along and found us because we didn't have cell reception. And we had gotten picked up, taken 15 miles by an amazing brother and sister couple to a bridge that had 1 bar of cell service. So I called my insurance company and I said, I'm not going to answer if you call me back. I don't have service. We are on the side of the road. And they called me back and I didn't answer. So they canceled our service. So until a police officer showed up at 9 the next morning and he pulled up, he must have thought we were crazy. I was like, yes, somebody's here. Nik, police is here. And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, we've been out here since 5 p.m. I'm really glad you came. He's like, do you want me to call you a chow? I'm like, yeah. But we were in a van. We had everything. You know, we have a propane stove. Is it not a stove? two propane burner. I mean, we can make all our own food. We have a plastic toilet. Like we had everything we needed. So we just slept on the side of the road like we normally do, but we just couldn't move when we wanted to.
Yeah. And also it's really hard to make people think that you're broken down when you're in a camper van. So just driving by like, oh, okay, they're just parked on the side of the road sleeping.
They're just camping.
Yeah.
Oh, so there were other cars that passed by and then completely oblivious. Like you have to like flag them down or something.
Yeah, Nick did. And we were waiting for the tow truck till like midnight. And then a tow came by. We flagged him down, but he was going for somebody else. And he came back and he's like, I saw you two earlier, but you were sitting out in your blue chairs. I just thought you were doing an art project. And we're like, well, no. We were reading books for kids on YouTube, but we weren't doing an art project. So he came in, he ended up being the one who picked us up the next morning too. So
very nice guy. Yeah. Okay. So speaking of that, you want to share with us some of the other challenges that are on, because people listening to this, I think are going to say like, fine, you guys just get along so well. I'm not like that with my partner. I'm not going to be able to go and do this, but I know there's really more to there.
I would say, speaking to what Lindsey brought up about the worry, and I mean, yeah, you can get along like perfectly with somebody, but there's going to be parts that aren't good. There's going to be the shitty parts. And I mean, there were times over the summer when we were really not doing so swell with each other. Like you said, we'd just like walk off, or we'd try to get in our canoe because we had a canoe for a little while. And I mean, we were just so pissed off at each other. And like at the end of the day, the breath of, breathing through it really helps. Giving yourself any sort of space that you can. Like we both, like we said, like we just walk away and just give yourself that space, because when you're living in that small of an environment, it is impossible to have any privacy, any time away from a person. So give yourself that. When you need it, know that you need it. And if your partner says, hey, I need a moment, give them that moment. Let them walk away and just not take your shit for a second, because it's so tough. There's so much happening, especially if you're on a road trip and car troubles are happening, like all these aggravating things that are beyond your control. And I, like Lindsey said, I just can't worry about things, like she said, because when I'd almost lost my life. So I was like, I'm not going to worry about this stuff that I can't control. But also finding the ability to do that, to be there for your partner when she's having troubles with that. I had to learn how to do that. Like not just say, well, I don't give a fuck. I can't do this. I can't care. But like actually taking the steps to learn how to be there in those moments and talk through it. Cause I wasn't driving all summer because of another alcohol related part of my life. So Lindsey had to drive the whole time. So I literally had to figure out how to just be there for her in every way possible. So it's a really good learning curve of when you think you have the perfect relationship and then you finally start fighting, which we haven't. Luckily, there were massive fights, but it was like, find your own space, whatever that may be. When you get to a place, give yourself that space. Give your partner that space. Like if you feel like taking that jab, maybe don't take that jab and just like breathe it out, take a walk, and come back and then talk about it, because frustration just doesn't lead to good communication. So don't do the little brother aspect of your life and pick and pick and pick, which I can be good at as well, and just walk away. It's really nice to just take some time when you're not spending any time apart to give yourself that time apart.
Yeah. And I like to talk things out, but I know that his style is like, if we pull into a camp spot and we've been having a moment, he's just going to get out and walk away. And for me not to say, let's talk about what's going on. Why do you feel that way? Wanting to ask the questions and solve it. What's going to work the best is I take a breath, let him go. He can journal, he writes, he has a breath, when we come back together and it's like, do we need to talk about it? Or is it just that I was filled with worry? You were trying to find a camp spot. I took the wrong turn and then it just exploded. And it really wasn't a deeper issue. It was just, it was just the issue at hand. But that need, I don't necessarily have a super need to talk it out all the time, but I think that maybe my gender, if I'm going to be super generalized with my gender, likes to talk things out. And sometimes you have to look outside yourself and say, okay, stop. This works for me, but it's not going to work for the other person. So it's not going to work for us to come to any understanding right now.
Yeah. I like that so much. You guys are just so self-aware of
Ooh,
what you need and what the other one
trying.
needs. So you can really go, what?
Yeah, trying, always trying.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. So for our final question,
Okay.
how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, connection, or intimacy?
Slow and deep breaths you can take together as you walk an adventure around this world.
That describes you so well, Lindsey. But I guess that describes your relationship also.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Nik?
What were the words again? I'm sorry. Love.
Love, connection, and intimacy.
Let's see. My mind was wandering towards adventuring into the unknown with eyes open.
I like that.
Yeah,
like that.
That's
Being
where my mind was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open to the other part of your relationship, of like the spontaneous, of the being flexible, pivoting, and things like that. Well, thank you so much, Nik and Lindsey. This was so much fun. You guys
This has been
are
such a pleasure.
so cool and so much fun to just talk to.
Thank you.
Enjoy your trip in Iceland. You have to tell me about that.
Definitely.
And get your relationship just getting even better every day.
Working on it.
You guys are great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. This has been
awesome,
beautiful.
That's all for this episode of Life Picks Relationships, and we have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support this show, but also give others what they need to take their marriage to the next level. We're striving to have 1 million downloads per episode by December 31st, 2025, so please share it with your family and friends so they can turn their relationship into an extraordinary one.